Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Songwriting Simplified with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at Jonny Lipsham Studios.co.uk. And man, we are already in well into the fourth month, I can't speak, and I've had no beer or wine or anything. We're already well into the fourth month of 2025, which is crazy to think about it. And we are well into spring. It has been an absolutely glorious day here. It's just been like sunshine, not a cloud in the sky, fabulously warm outside, like proper t-shirt weather. And I don't just mean t-shirt weather as in Scottish t-shirt weather, which is basically all year round. Anyway, I mean kind of in broad general terms, proper t-shirt weather. Been gloriously warm outside. So warm in fact that I went and sat down in the garden on our nice garden furniture, and I had my lunch outside today, which was wonderful. It was really, really nice. And then so I was sat out there for an hour in the glorious sunshine, and then I came back in here reluctantly because I have to do my job. But still, all of that to say, I'm actually in a really, really good mood as a result of just how lovely it's been. And it's been like that all week. It's been glorious sunshine all week. To the point where in the mornings before I actually start my day, I've been actually going out for a walk. And the cool thing is, in our the housing development that we live on, there's a back pathway that I can walk all the way down around the outside of the estate and then all the way down into town, and I can walk all the way back up and then down the main entrance into the development. And it's awesome. It's a lovely walk and it's nice and peaceful. There are trees. It's great. And it's really nicely sheltered from the breeze, so it's lovely and warm. And so I've been doing that most days this week. It's been great. So yes, I'm in a quite boisterous, happy mood as a result. So that's kind of the way we're starting off tonight's show, with warmth and joy and happiness. So let's see who is here. We've only got like 10 people at the moment, but I'm hoping that we'll get a few more. That would be nice. We were a wee bit low on attendance on Sunday, actually, as it goes. And in actual fact, for those of you that missed Sunday's show, we didn't actually make it through the whole hour. So it was like 51 or 52 minutes. So a little bit shorter than we would normally do. But I'm hoping that's not going to be a trend, because I like to do a whole hour for the show. So we got Billy Morgan here, who is always first in the door these days, followed by Tony Stringer. We got Boris, who has awesome question, which we're gonna tackle in just a minute. And then we got Dwayne, we got Kyle Jedruziak, and we got Brett Marley, we got Andrew, right? Hello, mate. And we've got Paul Morgan, and we got Dave here as well. So that's who we have just at the moment. So hopefully we'll get some more people in. But we're going to make a start, and we're going to get into these two questions. If you do have a question, please follow the example of these two fine gentlemen, Boris and Dwayne, who, when they asked their question, they started it with at Jonny Lipsham Studios. And what that does is that shows my name up in red in the chat. You don't see that. I do. And what that means is it's easy for me to see the questions and separate them out from just general conversation that's taken place. So that helps me not to miss questions. So please do that. For those of you that are watching and you are not subscribed yet, you need to subscribe. That's the first thing you need to do, is subscribe. And after a couple of minutes of having subscribed to the channel, the live chat will be opened to you, and you can ask a question, and you can say hello, and you can tell me who you are and whereabouts in the world you are. We've also just got Harley Bob and Just Bob arrive as well. The two Bobs are here, which is great. So we're up to 14 people. And the other thing that helps me out a lot, other than your subscriptions, is if you hit the like button. That also helps because that recommends this channel and also this stream to the YouTube algorithm, you know, the almighty algorithm. And what that means is that sometimes this show with a lot of likes and some of my videos with a lot of likes end up getting promoted to the YouTube homepage. And when that happens, more people are going to jump on it and more people are going to watch it. And it creates a nice little feedback loop. And this is how things go viral. Now, I'm not looking to go viral necessarily. I'm just looking to grow my channel and appeal to a wider and wider audience so that more people get educated on music production and songwriting and that kind of thing. So, Brett says, sadly, Sundays don't work so well for me as I'm at my day job and typically exhausted my breaks by then or after the show ends. Brett, I totally get that. I totally understand that as well. And in your case, watching the replay helps me a lot as well, especially if you add comments to the replay and you hit the like button as well. So if you're watching on replay because you can't be here live, that's okay. Just make sure you hit that like button and you add some commentary in the comments as well. So please do that. That would help me out a lot. And if you obviously have a question that you would like to ask, but you can't because it's not live, then you can certainly, you know, go to the web address at the bottom there and then use the contact form to send me your question via email. And then I will I'll start the show with your question. So, and of course, there's no character restrictions when you send an email, unlike in the chat. You've only got 160 characters. And of course, I'm robbing you of some of them because I want you to type my name in. But if you send an email, no such restrictions, and you can kind of add as much detail as you need for your question. So you can certainly ask questions that way. You don't have to do it in the chat if you don't want to. But chat is just a handy way for it being done live. All right, so let's go and start with Boris's question. And he says, this question straddles the line of songwriting and production. He says, if you stem separate a performance, for example, the drums on Peg by Steely Dan, or the organ on Love and Happiness by Al Green, could you pay the performer or would you still be beholden to the publishing companies? This is a great question. And actually, this goes to basically the heart of the question here is a copyright question. Now, things like the drum groove on Peg, although very recognizable, is not covered by copyright law. So you could certainly use the stem separation tool to lift that drum groove and just use that as the basis of a brand new song. And nobody would sue you. Nobody would come after you for copyright. Now, when it comes to the organ part on Love and Happiness, there is a little bit of a gray area. Because what happens in law is, broadly speaking, and most generally speaking with copyright law, is the melody and the lyrics are the primary subjects of what is covered by the copyright. So those are the primary things that are protected by copyright. So lyrics, melody. Now, here's the thing. If there are things like counter melodies that are provided by an instrumentalist, that technically could also be classified as essential melody. Now, seeing as we mentioned Steely Dan, Donald Fagen and Walter Becker actually ran into this problem themselves with a song called The Fez. Because unbeknownst to them, they had actually used or played a snippet of melody from a Keith Jarrett record. Keith Jarrett being, the great, phenomenal piano player. And so I know for a fact that Donald Fagen is a big Keith Jarrett fan, and he probably didn't mean to do it, but he ended up doing it. I think it's The Fez. It might be a different song. I might be confusing this with another situation that they ran into. But in either case, they certainly ran into a copyright situation where they had actually used an extract of a Keith Jarrett melody. And when that went to court, the musicologist presented the evidence to the judge that basically the melody in the Steely Dan song and the melody in the Keith Jarrett song were essentially the same. And the judge ruled in favor of Keith Jarrett. And so Keith Jarrett won not only significant damages, but a significant composer credit, which also meant that he also earned himself a cut of the song for royalties. So this is where you've got to be careful about how you use things like stem separation. Stem separation is a really, really powerful tool, but you got to be really careful about how you use it. And, it is always a good thing to go and do a little bit of research on music copyright law. So I would recommend that everybody that is a songwriter or an arranger or a composer or makes beats, particularly if you're a beat maker, if you're a beat maker, you must avail yourself of what is covered under copyright law, international copyright law. Because beat makers in particular, because they're doing sampling very regularly, can easily fall foul of this and find themselves in hot water. Now, there was another Steely Dan song, which I think The Fez is a different song from the Keith Jarrett one. But the thing with The Fez was they had a keyboard player by the name of Paul Griffin who played on that record. Now, that particular song doesn't have a whole lot of lyrics. It has basically a hook line, and then it has a chorus. And that's essentially it. It's a groove song. It's a vamp, basically, around a minor 251. So the issue with that song was that Paul Griffin's little melody that is played in between, as an interlude, in between the hook line and the chorus, and also repeats of the hook line, was an essential piece of melody. Now, Paul basically was able to make a claim that he should get composer credit for this, and he did. He won that, and he got composer credit. So that song is listed as Becker, Fagen, Griffin as composers, and so he obviously gets a cut, and he also gets composer credit as well. So when you're using something like stem separation to take drums from something, not really a big issue. If it's a Hammond organ part, for example, be careful. Be careful, because you need to check whether that Hammond organ part actually plays a melodic part that could be construed to be counter melody, or to be, kind of part of the melodic thematic statements within the song. And if that's the case, you can end up in trouble. So what would happen if you did use the drum groove from Peg and that organ part from Love and Happiness? Who would you have to deal with? You would deal with the publishing companies of both of those songs, because it's the publishing companies that owns the rights of those songs. It's not the composers. The composers receive a cut, they receive royalties, and they receive composer credit, but ultimately it is the production, it is the publishing companies, rather, that own the rights to the song. So that's more than likely going to be the publishing a subsidiary of the record company. So in most Steely Dan cases, that's going to be MCA. And if MCA is owned by a parent company, it will be the parent company of MCA. So yes, it would be those publishing companies that you would have to get permission from to use the Hammond organ part. So the secret here is, if you want to avoid getting into copyright trouble, which is going to cost you thousands of dollars, best thing to do is, before you publish your work, write an email and upload an MP3 copy of your song with the Hammond organ part in the song, so they get to see how you are using the Hammond organ part. And basically write to them and say, hey, I would really like to use this Hammond organ part in this song. This is how I'm doing it. How would I go about obtaining permissions for that? And just so you're framing it as a question rather than saying, I want permission. You're basically saying, how would I go about getting permissions? And what will happen is, a representative of that publishing company will get in touch with you. They will reply to that email, and they will either grant you permission, and you'll have to basically do whatever they tell you. So if they say, we'll give you permission, but you've got to give us composer credit on the song, and you also have to submit a certain percentage of your sales. And you will have no choice, but really, to be honest, you will have no choice but to agree to those terms. So that's kind of how it works. I need to kind of back up a little bit and preface all of that with, I am not a legal authority. This is not legal advice that I'm giving you, okay? This is kind of how I have found myself dealing with it with other people in the past, and also with myself in the past. So it's not legal advice. So please don't receive what I've told you as legal advice. Best thing to do is write to the publishing company and ask. Say, how would I go about being able to legally use this? Because I would like to. And they'll either say, yeah, okay, this is great, or they'll say, no. So, for example, if you're planning on sampling something from Hotel California by the Eagles, forget it. Don Henley will never allow that. Because that's what the Eagles are like. They don't allow people to use their materials. They just don't. Talk to Rick Beato. He will tell you everything you need to know about Don Henley, the Eagles, and copyright. But that is a belter of a question, Boris. Really, really good. Okay. Dwayne has the next question. He says, what inspires you most to want to write a song? Okay. I have a simple approach to songwriting, actually. And that is, I decide when I'm going to write. I don't have to wait for the muse or the creative flow or any other kind of ethereal expression for that vague thing that you wait to come to overshadow you to write a song. I'm just watching myself in the replay doing this with my hands. It's wow. So no, I don't have to wait for inspiration. I sit down and I write. And there's a whole bunch of different things that inspire me to write a song. Mostly what inspires me to write songs are things that I find funny, or I will create characters that I think are funny, and then I will put them in a situation that I think is funny. And the song will be born out of that. So my songs tend to be more little stories, you know. Because I see myself first and foremost as a storyteller and a comedian, and the songwriting is an extension of that. So I invent characters, I invent places, I invent scenarios, and I put them all to work together. Now, sometimes, you know, reality and what happens in the world provides me with plenty of material which I can write about. Because I like to find humor in everything that happens in the world. And when I say that, I'm not just talking, you know, world history, events, and I'm not just talking politics. I'm talking all sorts of things, like a sporting mishap, for example, where, for example, there was a soccer player, who was taking a penalty. And so basically it's just him and the goalkeeper cannot move until the ball has been struck by the penalty taker. So most times a penalty taker is going to score. Well, on this particular occasion, he absolutely should have scored. However, because he had this massive, great big long run up and he was charging towards the ball, and he swung his leg back almost all the way back, so the heel of his boot was touching his shoulder blade, and then he swung his leg through in the general direction of the ball, and you would have thought that he would have hit the ball really hard and it would have gone like a rocket into the net and he would have scored. Except here's the thing. With all of that effort, the ball trickled forward 3 inches and stopped. Because the footballer had actually kicked the living shit out of the ground and not the ball. And it was the movement of the ground in front of the ball that made the ball move. And of course, because the ball had moved off of its spot, it was now in free play, which meant the goalie could come out off his line and charge down the penalty taker. And of course, other defenders who are behind the ball could then swoop in as well and clear the ball out. And basically, the goalie just threw himself on top of the ball. And that was that. Guy should have scored, man. He should have scored. And so I thought, man, that is just too funny. So I decided to write this little funk tune, which is basically just a blues, just a minor blues. And I kept it really simple, chord changes wise. I didn't add in any really, funky chords like I normally do. I can like go to town on chord changes. But on this particular occasion, it was just 3 chords. I think it was a blues in C minor, and so it's like C minor, F minor, and G minor. I didn't even do G dominant; it was G minor. But man, so I wrote all about this guy who kicked the ground so hard that he caused an earthquake. Basically, that was my metaphor. I basically exaggerated the whole thing because I thought the whole thing was just so ridiculous. And I thought this represented a metaphor for certain other world events that were taking place at the time, that I was just like, there is just a ton of irony about this one footballing event that speaks to other world events that are taking place at the same time, that are just pure folly and stupidity. And so that kind of was the genesis for that particular song. I've written songs about televangelists, like Cresswell Dollar and Kenny Copeland and the people at TBN, and just weird, wacky people. And I'm saying that as a Christian, right? I am a Christian. I love Jesus. I love the church. I go to church every Sunday. I serve in my church. I'm absolutely 100% a Christian. But that doesn't mean that there isn't humor to be found in the weird and wacky things that certain parts of the church do, and some of the weird, wacky people that populate this world that we call the church. And so, because they're there, and because they're characters, I can write songs about those. And in fact, I wrote an entire album of songs about that. Where I'm basically just poking fun at these kind of things and just saying, look at these characters, look at these people, they are ridiculous. Why are you following these people? They are ridiculous. And so that was kind of like my songs. And of course, I like to juxtapose things. So, I will write a sad song with relentlessly upbeat music, and I'll do the opposite. I'll write a relentlessly happy lyric with really sad, dark music, because I like to juxtapose. And I think maybe this is why I like some of Quentin Tarantino's films, because he does that. He will juxtapose extreme foul language and extreme violence with relentlessly happy songs and relentlessly happy music accompanying those scenes. And so I think I kind of get his sense of humor a little bit. So those are kind of some of the things that inspire me to write songs. People, places, weird stuff that make me laugh. And hopefully they make you guys laugh too when you hear my songs. But I will also write fairly straightforward songs about, a young lad interacting with his father and having one of those precious father-son moments. I've written songs about that too. So I'll write down-to-earth songs as well as, songs about weird stuff. So I guess I have quite a broad sense of things that inspire me. That's a really great question. And I guess maybe I just don't talk about that kind of thing enough. Just Bob had a question above that I didn't see. Dave has a question as well. Dave says, have you ever heard of the rule of 3 in songwriting? A friend mentioned this to me. I have heard of it. It's not something that I really bother myself with, to be honest. I don't subscribe to anything that says rule when it comes to music writing. There are conventions. There are accepted traditions. Those things I will adhere to. And some of those things I will bend out of shape a bit as well. Like, just because there are things like perfect cadences, it doesn't mean my song has to end on a perfect cadence in order to have that sense of we have finished, we have arrived. But those are established and accepted conventions. So when it comes to kind of like rules, no. Conventions, yeah. And you might sit there and say, oh, that's semantics. Aren't rules conventions? Aren't rules based on conventions? Maybe. But the thing with conventions is they're not hard and fast. They are things that have been derived over a long period of time of exploration, of discovery, of analysis, of musicological analysis and that kind of thing. So that's how those kind of things are discovered. Like for example, form and structure. Let's take something like the 32-bar AABA song form, which was popularized in the late 1920s and on into the 1930s and beyond, and became kind of like the standard form for songwriting in the United States, particular for popular songs. Like, if you listen to anything by Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, Rodgers and Hammerstein, um, George and Ira Gershwin, Stephen Sondheim, people around the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and around that kind of area, and people that wrote in that kind of style as well. There are conventions, like there's an A section, that is repeated, like an 8-bar A section that gets repeated. And then there's a B section, which is kind of a diversion from that, and then you go back to the A section, which you play one more time. So it's like 3 A's with a B in the middle. And so you find songs like I Got Rhythm, Cherokee, Love for Sale. All of those songs are written using that form. And so it became a convention that if you want to write a lot of songs very fast, which is what they did in Tin Pan Alley, and then what they did in that Brill building as well, is they wrote lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of songs, hundreds of songs being churned out every single day by all of those guys, Roger and Hammerstein, Irving Berlin, Cole Porter, the Gershwin brothers. They were churning those songs out by the 1,000 every day. And so they had to have a formula by which they could write those songs very quickly. And so this is where chord changes like, the I Got Rhythm chord changes became so immensely popular. And then, of course, the I Got Rhythm changes, which is a Gershwin song, then got used in the bebop period by Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, and all of those guys. And they basically just wrote new melodies on top of those chord changes. So I believe in conventions, not so much in rules, is kind of the answer to that. Just Bob says, how do you break down 2 odd time signatures to find the common groupings of matching time against, instead of creating a complex time signature, possibly both for a breakdown using both odd time signatures in a song leading back into the chorus, for example? Okay, that's a little complicated. I think I see where you're going with that question, though. So here's the important thing, and I think people like, I'm not necessarily a fan, but this is where guys like Neil Peart, from the late Neil Peart from Rush, had this down to a fine art. And that was to take something complex like 15/8 and go, okay, how do we break that down into something that we can count without having to count up to 15? And so there are a couple of things that I have derived from listening to that kind of material and different ways in which you can count that kind of stuff. So instead of counting the 15, break it down into little groups. So let's take 5/8, for example. So you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And it basically feels like a lopsided half note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could feel the pulse that way. Or you could think of it as a group of 3 and a group of 2. And you could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That's fine if you like counting. And you like that rigid framework of, bar lines. What if what you are wanting to do, actually you want it to go over the bar line? Well, you got to break those groups of notes into something else. So if you don't want to keep on counting various variations of 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, then there's another approach. Find an onomatopoeic word that fits those rhythms. So let's take the 1, 2, 3, which is a triplet. So let's take those 3 notes. Let's find a 3-syllable word that fits. How about triangle? Triangle. That fits. Triangle. Okay? I like triangles. So triangle makes a nice little triplet sound. Triangle, 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 triangle. That's good, okay? But what about the little duplets? Triplets, duplets. Well, you got to find a 2-syllable word. Pick whatever word you want. Or you can stretch a 1-syllable word to make that fit as well, which you can do either, whichever you want to do. So this is the method that I devised for counting those kind of ridiculous figures that you'd find in those kind of Rush songs, and also that you find in Frank Zappa songs as well, that are in absurd time signatures. And that's this. I've got triangle, and my duplet is going to be housey. So I'm going to take a 1-syllable word, house, and I'm going to stretch it into 2. So triangle, housey. Okay? So what that now means is I can take those 15 and I can just basically make them into groups of 3 and groups of 2. And I'm not concerned about where the downbeat is, because the downbeat doesn't necessarily have to be particularly relevant. It just has to be 15 eighth notes. And once you've got that, so triangle, triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, triangle, 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 housey, housey, triangle, triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, triangle, and all of those kind of permutations of those, you can build complex time signatures without really thinking much beyond 3 and 2, triangle and housey. And the cool thing about that is that you find where your pulse is at the same time, the underlying pulse. So if you are good at maths, which I am not, you can then find, okay, let's just say that all complex time signatures are just 4/4. So let's take 19/8. Do the maths. Those are eighth notes. How many eighth notes are in a quarter note? 2. Okay, how many quarter notes is that going to be? You do the math. You work that one out. Okay, so where does beat 1 resolve with the beat 1 of the 19? How long does it take? How many 4/4 measures does it take before your beat 1 of a 4/4 measure and the beat 1 of your 19/8 measure happen at the same time? And then you decide, okay, whenever that happens, that is my phrase. That is my cadence, so to speak. And so that's how I do it. So most of the time when I'm playing something that's a Frank Zappa tune, I'm not thinking about counting the 15/8 or the 19/8 or 33/8 or whatever it happens to be. I'm thinking 3s and 2s, 3s and 2s, triplets, duplets, triplets, duplets, triangles, housey's, triangles, housey's. I'm making those fit with whatever the phrasing of the rest of the music is. And I don't think about where the 1 is. I never think about where the 1 is. All right? So that's what I do when I'm working in very complex time signatures like 13/8, 19/8, 24/8, 33/8, whatever it happens to be. Now, if I'm working consistently in something like 7/8, here's the way I count 7/8. Some people might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or you can apply the triangle housey. Okay, how's that going to work? Triangle accounts for 3. And then you need, 4? So 3 plus 4 is 7, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is. So we need a triangle and 2 houseys. So triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, housey, triangle. What have I just done there? Not only have I broken that down into constituent parts that's easy to play, easy to think about, easy to remember, and I'm not thinking where the beat 1 is, I found an underlying pulse. And I'm going to click it with my fingers so you can hear it. Triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, housey, triangle. Right? So okay, that's one way to do it. There's another way. You can subdivide this in so you can make 7/8 basically become 3 quarter notes plus 2/3, like a dotted quarter note instead, right? Which is essentially what that would be if you reverse it. If you do the houseies first and then the triangle. So you go housey, 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 triangle, housey, housey, triangle, housey, housey, triangle. But what if we turned that last bit where we've got the triplets and actually we make that into 16th notes? Especially if we're playing something that's straight ahead funk, right? 16th note funk in 7/8. You maybe don't want the triplet kind of thing happening at the end. So why not kind of make that into a dotted 8th note? Or actually, in this case, it would be an 8th note plus a 16th note, because then it adds up to 7/8 if you do that. So basically you'd have dun 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 dun. And there you have 7/8. But you're not counting 7. You're counting 3 and 2/3 4, basically. And you're doing it by feel, and you're doing it by instinct, and you're doing it by finding the underlying pulse. And that's how you do it. And that's how you make those kind of things musical, not just a complex time signature for the sake of a complex time signature. You're doing it for the music, right? So you're learning to phrase the music within that complex thing, because you want to make the thing breathe, right? So the best way to make it breathe is to find the underlying pulse, like I just did with the 7/8 there. Find the underlying pulse. Find a quarter note pulse if you can, if there's a time signature, and you can work out where you could maybe do, let's say, I'm sure the math is going to be wrong here and somebody can fix that for me, but let's say it's 19/8. And it's like, okay, we can do 4 bars of 4/4 and then a bar of 3/4, and that makes our 19/8, or whatever it happens to be. Well, that's how you play it. That's how you play it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And there, you're not even thinking about the 19. You've found a pulse. You can play a funk groove to that, man. See what I'm saying? So I hope that helps, Bob. That was a fantastic question. Really, really fantastic. Paul Morgan says, Steely Dan's Ricky Don't Lose That Number intro is Horace Silver. Well, it's similar to Horace Silver, but it's not the same. Okay, just doing. Yeah, kind of sounds like Song for My Father by Horace Silver. But you know what? There's also a whole lot of other songs that start. Possible, being that that Donald Fagen was a big Horace Silver fan. He may have kind of like been inspired by Song for My Father. By the way, Song for My Father is a great song. And by the way, there's a brilliant YouTube video of Mike and Randy Brecker playing that with, I've forgotten the guy's quartet now. Darn it, I can't remember the guy's name. But anyway, if you search Michael Brecker Song for My Father, you'll find it. He's probably in his 20s in that video, but he plays the most breathtaking tenor sax solo on the changes to Song for My Father. It's amazeballs. It's absolutely breathtaking, and he only gets better from that point. That's the thing, when you're watching that, you go, wow, this is incredible. This is an incredible tenor sax solo. And then you realize, actually, between then and his very sad and untimely death, he gets better. So, let's see. Keith says Don Henley is such a woo. They will probably tag this video just for using his name. Yeah, quite possibly. It wouldn't surprise me. Let's see. Just Bob says, you should write a song about how Viagra is dispensed at night in elderly communities to keep the men from turning over and falling out. You know what? I'm really tempted to kind of do that as a kind of it's got to be done a little bit like Steely Dan's Pretzel Logic. You know, if you know what I'm talking about, if you're familiar with that song, it's kind of got to have that kind of slow, slinky blues vibe to it for sure. Night Game by Paul Simon, tune about the pitcher dying on the mound. Yes, it is. Quentin Tarantino has forever ruined Stuck in the Middle with You by the Steelers wheel for me because of that very thing. Yeah, I think he's probably ruined a bunch of songs because of that. Dave says, rule of 3, the idea is to have only 3 musical phrases playing at any one time in your song. Beyond 3 or 4 elements at once can crowd your track. Harder for an audience to recall. Yeah, I disagree with that. And my reason for disagreeing with that is entirely historical. There is this type and style of music in the Baroque period, and Johann Sebastian Bach was probably the greatest ever exponent of this, and that is fugue. A lot of his fugues are 4-part fugues, which basically means there are 4 thematic statements that get moved around within the parts. But he had more than that on a number of occasions. I can see why there is this rule of 3. I can see why it exists. Basically, the idea is the human brain can only take in so many melodies at the same time. Kind of not true. The human brain is capable of absorbing multiple auditory stimuli at the same time without issue. For example, if you're taking a walk down the street, you can identify different car horns. You can identify the difference between a car horn and the horn of a bus. And you can differentiate the engine sound of a bus from a car. And you can hear the wind as it rushes past your ear. And you can also hear birdsong. You might not be able to identify the birdsong because you might not be well versed enough in recognizing the melodies of birds, but you'll be able to hear them and you'll be able to go, that's a bird singing and it's over there. There's a bus over here that's just honked his horn, and there's a car behind me that is waiting allowing me to cross the road. These things can go on at the same time, and then of course multiple other things. Maybe a Cessna light single engine plane flies overhead, all at the same time that these things are going on. The brain is able to identify all of those sounds and their locations all at the same time. Therefore, you can do the same with melody, instruments, and music. If you listen to a John Williams film score, you will find that there are multiple levels of melodies going on at the same time. And your brain is well able to decide which one is meant to be the lead melody, which one is a counter melody, and which one is an accompaniment to the counter melody, and which one is actually responding to the counter melody. and which is introducing itself, ready to take over the main melody from the other instrument. Brain is well able to do that. So this is why I don't agree with the rule of 3. But it is a good way when you are starting out, or when you are, even at an intermediate level of composing. It is a good way to manage melody, so that you don't have too much going on at the same time, especially if you are not able to manage lots of melodies at the same time. So, I mean, for goodness sake, traditional Dixieland jazz is extremely contrapuntal music. And there's a musicological term for you. What does that mean? It means there's counterpoint going on. There are more than one melody happening at the same time. But you can identify when you are listening to it, when you're listening to a Dixie band play When the Saints Go Marching In, you can tell which instrument has the melody, which instrument has the counter melody, and which instrument is also playing an obligato. And then which instrument is providing the bass. And then those will swap around. So maybe the trumpet has the first time through the head, maybe the clarinet takes over the next time. And then maybe the trombone takes it over. You can identify when those things happen. Your brain is smart enough to do it. So yeah, kind of don't agree with it. Brett says, so I'm guessing you were playing songs like Inca Roads or Zombie Wolf. I've played some of those. Yeah. Peter Gunn, yeah, Peter Gunn is good. Money by Floyd, which is actually in 7/4, but yes, you could break that down into 3/4 and 4/4. But yeah, it is essentially it's 3/4/4/4 is essentially the same as 7/4. But that is definitely a valid way of counting it. Brett says the theme from Superman is a perfect example of melodies interweaving under the main melody. Absolutely, as is the main theme from Star Wars. Now, the thing with that is the main melody of Star Wars is really, really strident. It's really obvious where the main melody is. And then you've got lots of other little counter melodies and obligatos that are going on underneath it. Especially when you get into the second section where you've got the pedal tone in the basses. You've got the main melody, and then you've got all of these other little counter melodies going on at the same time. So, yeah. Counterpoint is a thing that is definitely worth learning about. Alright, so we have 4 minutes left, and we have had some absolute belters of questions. And I have just noticed that Lucas Ruzicka is here. The Harmony Wizard himself is here. Lucas, thank you for dropping by, man. I appreciate it a lot. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm calling him the Harmony Wizard and you think I'm just being nice, yeah, I am kind of being nice because Lucas is one of my really good friends. However, he has created something called Harmony Wizard. And if you have no idea what this is, it is an awesome composing and songwriting tool that you can actually have inside Studio One. It's not free. You have to pay Lucas for it because he has put a lot of hard work into developing it. And the worker is definitely well worth his wages, especially when it comes to Harmony Wizard. So it's not expensive. It really is not expensive. But I highly, highly encourage you to go and check out Harmony Wizard. And when you do, you'll find there's a whole bunch of tutorial videos, so you'll get to see what it is, what it does, what it's like. And then when you buy it, you just install it into Studio One, and you activate it, and there it is. And you'll find it in the note editor, predominantly in the note editor. There's like a macro toolbar that comes with it. And there's a bunch of macros that make making music, particularly writing harmonies, voicing chords, particularly if harmony is not really your thing. Maybe you're not a guitar player. I have a guitar. I do play it. I would never class myself as a guitar player. But one of the best things for me personally with the Harmony Wizard is that if I play in a kind of typical keyboard voicing for a certain chord, there is a tool inside the Harmony Wizard that you can click on that will magically, it is wizardry, convert my voicing into something that is going to work on a guitar. Very, very clever. Very, very clever indeed. And that, be honest, I mean, there's lots of other things in the Harmony Wizard as well, but to be honest, that for me is like tool numero uno. If I'm voicing chords for guitar, particularly if I'm doing like fingerstyle nylon acoustic guitar for certain songs. Like I said, I'm no guitar player, so I need to make sure that the guitar voicings for my chord changes work. And Harmony Wizard does that. So check out Lucas's Harmony Wizard at s1toolbox.com/Harmony Wizard. Go and buy it. He says he's not here for free advertising, but I appreciate it. I know you're not here for free advertising, but I'm advertising it anyway, and it doesn't cost you anything. Actually, maybe it costs you a beer, but that's probably about it. Like, you know, the next time I am in Hamburg, if you are able to get yourself up to Hamburg as well, Lucas, we could go for a beer. Absolutely. That would be awesome. But, Just Bob says, enjoy the praise, Lucas. You have earned it. Correct. Could not agree more. Let's see. Harmony Wizard is very good, says Peter Brooks. Yeah, it really is. It's excellent. Rich says, Harmony Wizard is the first ever MIDI/note editing extension for Persona Studio One 6 and 7, developed by MIDI and Studio One specialist Lucas Ruzicka. And you know what? I think that's awesome advertising copy right there. I have to admit, I'm really loving Harmony Wizard 1.0, and I can't wait for future developments of Harmony Wizard. Because already it's really, really great. But I think with this particular thing, I think the future of it is very, very bright. Anyway, we are at the end of the show. And Lucas, it's going to be like 2 a.m. for you, you crazy lunatic. But you're a jazz guy like me, so it's you know, 2 a.m. is kind of it's our regular hours, I guess. Anyways, thank you very much, everybody, for your awesome questions and for everybody being here, including Rich Cresswell and Lucas as well. Billy Morgan says, in 1 hour, there is a Studio One meetup. Follow that link that he has posted there. For sure. Now, that's going to be a little bit late for me because that'll be like 2 a.m. for me. And I actually have to work tomorrow, and I have actually got a very busy day tomorrow, so I need to have my E-game tomorrow, and so if I stay up like for an extra 2 hours, I'm not going to have my E-game, and that'll be bad. So, Lucas says, we're definitely getting that beer in Hamburg, just got to figure out when. Yeah, absolutely. We need to talk about that, and we need to talk to Arnd about that as well. For sure. Anyways, that's the end of the show, folks. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. You guys rock. We'll be back here on Sunday for Sunday Night Live when we'll be talking all things Studio One. and I'll be answering your questions about Studio One. So if you've got questions, just like we did tonight for songwriting and all of that, if you've got questions about Studio One, then that is the place to do that. And of course, recording, mixing, and mastering broadly in general as well. So until then, folks, I wish you all a fantastic evening. Good night.